Order at 9:35. And let us begin with roll call.
Johnson.
Present.
Whiteford.
Here.
Markham is absent. Oh, she's joining us remotely.
Go ahead and announce what. Go ahead and.
I am, find my thing there. Yeah, I'm here remotely from Novi, Michigan.
Thank you. Miller.
Present.
Rahman.
Present.
Long.
Here.
Spiz.
Here.
Smith Charles.
Present.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let us stand for the pledge. I'd like to ask Commissioner Miller if he would lead us in the pledge.
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Takes us to item 4 on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 15th, 2023. Mr. Johnson and Ms. Long, is there any discussion? I'll go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carries. Takes us to item 5, which is approval of the agenda. I'll take a motion to do such. Mr. Rahman moves. Mr. Spiz supports. Discussion on that. Seeing none, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carries. That takes us to item 6 on the agenda, which is public comment. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to address this committee, this EDI committee? And seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Takes us to item 7, which is communications. We don't have any. Moving on to the consent agenda, which is item 8. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move the consent agenda, which is A through I of numerous tri-party approvals.
Is there support? Supported by Mr. Rahman. And is there any discussion? Thoughts, comments? Anyone representing those communities have a word to say? Sure.
I will at least speak for mine, which is A, and I can tell you that this is long overdue, so I'm really, really excited. So anybody that's in that commerce area knows that this is something much needed, so I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. And seeing no other discussion before us, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 9 is regular agenda. First, item A is economic development, aviation and transportation, airport land lease addendum, JDS Pump and Go LLC. And we will entertain a motion to recommend to the board. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Whiteford, thank you both. Looks like Ms. Bush is with us. The microphone is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We have before us a land lease addendum. This was a land lease that we just entered into, if you recall, less than a month ago. But as soon as we started down that approval process, the tenant requested an addendum which would allow them a first right of offer to an adjacent property that is typically our practice anyway, but they felt more comfortable having it as a part of their new lease. So we are in full agreement, and this land lease will address that. There's no adjustment to budget or monetary considerations at all.
Thank you very much. Don't see any hands raised, any comments from the commissioners. Mr. Johnson?
Sorry, yes, and I just raised my hand. Yeah, you said it was the practice. Is it typically executed too? Like, is there a long history of people executing that?
Yeah, it's never quite in writing. It's just a policy that if a property becomes available, we would offer it first to the adjacent leaseholders.
Do they take you up on that offer, I
Yes,
guess?
oh,
Okay,
yes.
Cool.
Yeah, they will sometimes battle over it. But they have the first right before we open it up to other outside parties.
Sure.
Terrific. Anyone else? Mr. Rahman?
Have they expressed any desire to do anything with that property at this point, or is it just?
They do have a plan. They've had a plan to construct on that property for some time. And so it's a phase 3 to their property and would encompass another hangar, but I don't have a timeline yet. And so this is just a right to offer. So if we had another interested party, we would go to JDS Pump and Go, let them know that we have an interested party. They would have a short period of time to respond and enter into a lease, or they would have, the right to offer would go away, and we would be open to lease to another party. So it doesn't tie the property up if there's other progress to be made. But the property is right adjacent, right on top of their facility, so it wouldn't really be attractive to a new party coming in.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Great. Anything else? All right, let us prompt the vote.
We have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bush.
Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Yes.
Item 9B, Facilities Management Leased Vehicle Operations Unit, creation of 3 positions. I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the board.
I'll move it.
Mr. Wiper moves, Mr. Johnson supported it, and we have Todd Burkle here to talk with us about this.
I
Mr.
switched
Burkle.
hats from record retention to vehicle operations. I wanted to introduce you to John Tompkins. John is the Chief of Support Services, and he's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the vehicle fleet, so he's got quite a busy job. Our request before you today is to add 2 technicians and a communications installer to the Vehicle Operations Fund. This is to accommodate, we've added 142 vehicles to the fleet since 2013, and the majority of the growth, all but 9 of the vehicles, has been in the sheriff and the water resource commissioner. They're both picking up a lot of contracts and additional positions. And the motor pool fund's an internal service fund. A part of our rate that we charge back for the vehicles includes a maintenance fee per mile, and the maintenance fee generated by these additional vehicles alone will exceed the cost of these positions by over $100,000 a year. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Long?
Oh, yes, thank you. Did we not add, just to refresh, or have we not added any positions since 2013, or we did, haven't we,
We
or
have
we have
not
not?
added any since 2013.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Spiz and then
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Wiper.
Chair. So how are we keeping up today? 142 vehicles is a lot.
Yes.
And so how are we maintaining those vehicles today without these 3 people?
It's been very challenging.
Are we doing overtime? How are we doing it?
We are doing some overtime, and also we have some dealerships on contract that we use as backups. The labor rate, though, at the dealerships is almost twice what our internal labor rate is. Plus, the turnaround time is not really what we need with law enforcement vehicles.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, we would expect to see a reduction in cost from that also from the dealerships, which should offset the cost of these additional positions, to a degree.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I had the same question. I was wondering what, this didn't just happen, so everybody's been pulling together and getting it done, huh?
Yeah, it's been really tough, and thank goodness during COVID that we have an in-house repair facility, because a lot of the dealerships shut down, and we couldn't just park our patrol cars or the water resource trucks.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Miller and
Sorry, I
then
missed
Mr.
it.
Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I see that it's like leased vehicles, isn't that normally, are the lease normally covered when you lease them?
Yeah, it's kind of misnomer when we say we leased. We call it leased, that we purchase the vehicles with capital from the motor pool fund, and then we lease them back to the departments. But actually, the lease is a depreciation.
Internal lease.
Yes, exactly. And we lease them, we depreciate them over a period of years, depending on the type of vehicle. When it's fully depreciated, that part of the monthly payment is removed.
Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Good question. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I don't know. This is kind of a weird question, and I'm happy to see the Water Resources Commissioner here also, because I know you said a lot of the vehicles are in their fleet too. I'm an EV owner, and one of the great perks of having an EV is that I don't ever need an oil change, and my repairs are rather minimal. The transition to electrified fleets is a long horizon program, but it will happen. So just kind of wondering the time horizon on all of these positions, because they are easier to maintain. If in 10 years half of our fleet is electric and it's easier to maintain anyway, are these positions in jeopardy, or are we just going to keep buying more and more and more vehicles so that is a redundant point? Because I understand there's this weird thing where you obviously we have more vehicles in the fleet, which inherently require more maintenance, but also they progressively get easier to maintain.
And I wish I could predict that a little better with the EVs. It's been such a challenge. We talk about it every day, and going into this, I thought it would be much easier to start integrating EVs into the fleet, and it's really been difficult, number one, just because of being able to charge these vehicles, and a lot of our vehicles are not coming back to the campus every night. So it's something we'll have to address as time goes on. And like you had mentioned, I would imagine the sheriff will, NWRC, both will probably even be picking up more contracts.
Yeah.
There's always going to be, at least I would say over the next 20 years, the ICE engine vehicles for the 3/4 ton pickup trucks that have plows on them, dump trucks. It's just, the technology is not there, nor it probably won't be there in the next 10 years to convert those to electric.
Yeah, no, for sure. And those weigh too much anyway to convert en masse,
Right.
Which is a whole different conversation. But yeah, thank you.
I thought you were going to ask, since you mentioned Water Resource Commissioner, I thought you were going to ask about washing those cars.
Oh,
But that was not
no,
your question,
no.
so I'll leave it alone.
Do you want to ask?
All right, anything further? Let us prompt the vote.
The only charging station we have on campus is inside the lobby of the courthouse.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
7 yeas, 0 nays, that motion carries. Thank you, Todd, and welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Takes us to item 9C under the regular agenda, which is facilities management, renovation and expansion of outdoor kennel project for the animal shelter. Can I get a motion to forward to finance? Mr. Rahman, and a support?
I'll support it.
Mr. Weipert, thank you. And looks like Mr. Gatt,
Gatt, yes, ma'am.
good to see you in real life.
Good to see you in real life.
And the floor is yours. If you have some other members of your staff or team that you want to introduce, please do so.
Okay, thank you. First of all, good morning, Commissioners. In 2021, the Board of Commissioners commissioned a study to be done at the Oakland County Animal Shelter by Dr. Sarah Pisano. And although Dr. Pisano found that our shelter was doing excellent work, well above the national average in most cases, she did have several suggestions on how to make our shelter better. And we've implemented every single suggestion that we were capable of doing, and indeed, our shelter is operating as well as anyone could expect. We're very proud of the work being done there. We're servicing about 4,000 animals per year. Today, I'm here requesting your permission to proceed with another suggestion Dr. Pisano made concerning some outside pens. Our shelter is nearly 6 years old now, and those of you who are familiar with it know that on the east side of our building, there's a very large outdoor play area that's all fenced in. And everyone would agree, I hope, that dogs crave and indeed need as much outside air and sunshine as possible. The play area that I just described is beautiful and spacious, but it's vastly underused because we can never have more than a couple of dogs outside without supervision. Otherwise, the dogs would most likely get into a fight. By adding these 19 outside play areas, we will positively affect our operations in a myriad of ways. First, our dogs will be happier. 3 of the 19 pens proposed are bigger than the other 16, whereby we will be able to put several dogs together to play in accordance with Dr. Pisano's recommendations. A happier dog makes a more adoptable pet, and that's something that everyone in the shelter is striving for on a daily basis. Second, by moving a minimum of 19 more dogs outside during the day, our cleaning staff will be more and better able to deep clean the cages. Today, much time is spent moving the dogs from one location to another in the shelter in order to clean either a half a cage at a time or a whole cage. After the new pens are built, we can move a whole row of dogs outside, clean the entire area in a much quicker and more efficient fashion, and make the dogs safer and healthier, which when they return to a very clean environment. Third, the project also calls for 2 more things. One, a Dr. Pisano recommendation to build a wall in our Adoption 4 area. If any of you have been there, you know that our Adoption 4 area, the dogs in that row have cages that are half inside and half outside. And these cages that are outside are adjacent to a special turf play area, if you will. And we always allow 1 dog outside in that play area. Well, the other, 15 dogs are watching their buddy out there running around loose, and it drives them crazy. So Dr. Pisano suggested that a wall be built to shield the dogs from seeing the 1 dog that's loose outside. By building that wall, we're going to make, again, more efficient and happier dogs, which means more adoptable. And finally, the project will allow us to put a top on all of our present and future outside pens. We have an 8-foot fence that's erected now to keep our dogs inside, and we have found that in some dogs' cases, that's not high enough. In the last 6 months, 2 dogs have jumped over the 8-foot fence that they are presently in. 1 escaped into the county property, if you will. We caught it. 1 jumped over the fence and injured one of our employees, bit her pretty good. So by putting tops on all the new cages and all the existing cages, it's going to make the place safer and better. And the best news is that the project won't expend any money from the general fund. A portion will be funded by unexpected proceeds from the previous sale of bonds for the original construction project. A portion will be funded through unexpended funds from lapsed projects that were part of the county's coronavirus response. And the remaining balance will be funded by the Oakland County Animal Shelter Pet Adoption Legacy Fund. So I'm here, along with a couple of the people from FM&O on the screen, seeking your approval to move forward with this project.
Great presentation.
Really good.
Mr. Spiz, I see your hand.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. Everything you just described, Mr. Gatt, is it somewhere in our packet? Because I didn't see that, because I was going to ask for a plan. And you kind of outlined it a little bit, but I'm being an engineer and a rather old engineer, and I hate to say that, but I like to see plans. I like to see things on paper. So
I don't know what's in your packet.
Okay.
There's certainly professional plans that have been drawn up. It will be, all these anticipated new pens will be in our play area now. Half the play area will be consisting of these new pens.
Okay, but is there anything on paper we can see? I don't know if anybody else is.
I've seen that.
Yet?
I have
No?
some that I can, I'm
Please.
sure FM&O, I don't know if they're listening, if
Ed's on.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well.
Yeah, Jason, are you available?
Yes, good morning. Yeah, we have plans. I can send those over to Connie if you'd like, and she can forward them out if that's okay.
Yes, please, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, absolutely.
And Madam Chair, if I may, second
Yes,
question.
please.
On the funding, I'm still a little confused where we're gonna come up with $2 million. understand, some of it's coming from ARPA, some is from Legacy Fund, it's just,
Some from ARPA, some from Legacy Fund, and some from unexpended funds that were left over from the original building project.
okay. I'm not sure, you may not know the answer, but could any of those funds be used for any other projects, or is the only thing they could be used for is this? Do you know that answer?
I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, I don't have that. I do have a lawyer letter here
That's
from
all
Miller
right.
Canfield giving us permission to move forward with those funds.
Okay, only reason I asked that question, because most of those commissioners are aware we have a lot of projects in the county, I'm just trying to somehow prioritize them, and is this the best use of our funds?
I
at
would
this
guess that
point,
they have to
or
be
should-
moved, they would have to be used for the original project.
Okay, maybe I'll have a follow-up conversation outside of this, thank you.
Commissioner, I can tell you, the funds from the Michigan Department of Treasury, from the bonds, that is, the majority's coming from the bonds, and then also from the pet adoption legacy. I don't have the Schedule A in front of me, and it'll give you the amount that is coming from the ARPA funds.
It was 500,000, something like that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Looks like 500,000.
500, yeah, or 5.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question, so the fence you're talking about, is it just gonna, what kind of fence are we talking about? Some kind of good design? Is it gonna be visible to the road?
It's going to be chain link fence, identical to the fence that we have on the property now.
Well, you mentioned that it's to block dogs seeing other dogs, so chain link fence you could see right through.
That's going to be a block wall, cement block wall, hiding the view of the outdoor cages from the play area that is existing now.
Yeah, because block wall seems so like stoic, like old school. Is there any new design that we could use?
Well, I'm not an architect or designer, but we did have architects involved, and FM&O handled all of that. The drawings I saw is going to be, a beautiful project, and it's going to blend in very nicely with what's there now.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further on this? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 1 nay.
Thank you. That motion carries with 6 yeas, 1 nay. Thank you again, Mr. Gatt, Bob, as you told me to call you.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving along, folks. Let's take care of item 10 on our agenda, which is a presentation from the Water Resource Commissioner, the WRC Annual Report. All right, this is receipt file. Thank you.
Rolling up in force today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for having us here this morning to discuss our 2022 Drain Annual Report.
And before you technically start, just, this was in my mailbox, so if you didn't see this, it's probably waiting for you in yours.
Other nighttime reading.
And then just for good measure, Jim Nash, just if you wouldn't mind, and then Carrie Cox, Sid Lockhart.
We had a change out to Joel.
No problem. Joel Brown.
Yep.
And Gary
Yep, Gary Nigro.
Nigro. Welcome. Thank you.
Sid Lockhart is actually online.
He's online.
Oh, nice.
With us.
Happy to have all of you here. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you.
All right, over to you, Carrie.
Thanks. So today we'd like to present what our office has accomplished in fiscal year 2022 and highlight some of our innovative projects. And first, I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Nash.
Well, thanks. I'm, as always, it's great to be here. It's great to see everybody. I just noticed here, you guys got all high tech since I left, because we didn't have any of this stuff when I left. Anyway, I just want to, we want you to understand what we do. we're serving every citizen in Oakland County one way or another, and this presentation is going to help you understand the systems we operate and maintain, the financials associated with the work we do, and the innovative projects we manage, which we are really doing extremely good work on. So I'm not going to talk a lot about this. The experts here are the ones that need to talk about this. So Carrie, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, this is yours.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is mine too. Okay, so these are the 5 outcomes my office works on every day, and this is something that's really a regional effort now. Everybody understands that these are the things we need to work from. The project to protect public health and safety, that's the first thing we do. It's what we need to be doing. This is a Royal Oak Township outreach event we did for the lead service line replacement. This is something that, again, some communities are heavily affected by, and some communities have basically none. So it's a very individualized thing that we have to make sure that we're following. That we're preserving our natural resources and the environment. Again, this is vitally important. We depend on the environment for our well-being, for having a good place to live. If we're not doing that, we're in trouble. We're working to maintain reliable, high-quality service. This is, again, something that we're very well known for. We operate and maintain for 17 communities for their systems, and that's why, because we're well known to do it, and we have it. We have efficiencies of scale. We contribute to economic prosperity. Nobody wants to live in a place with bad infrastructure. If we're not making sure our infrastructure is operating properly, again, we're not going to be doing well economically. And again, everything we do, we have to ensure the value of those investments. This is what we're doing. These things have to last for decades. Well, I'm long gone, and these guys will have grandkids too. So this is something we do every day, and 375 employees that do it. So now I'm done.
Thanks. Well, good morning. Whether you push the envelope for financing and grants and low-interest loans to competitive bid practices, or to allow competition and innovation, or procurement methods that allow faster acquisition but maintain low risk for our systems, or if you're working with regulators to modify outdated regulations to allow more optimized use of today's technology and regional collaboration to do more what's best for the water quality in our region. Or even our day-to-day maintenance, operations, and capital projects that are driven by our asset management plans, which promote the long-term sustainability of the utilities managed by our office. Our team is here today to show you how we've put these innovation tactics into play in fiscal year 2022 to optimize the outcomes mentioned by Commissioner Nash for the residents of Oakland County. So in fiscal year 2022, our office oversaw more than 500 system funds, and these utilities included 22 local water systems we operated on behalf of the communities in Oakland County. This included the cities of Sylvan Lake and Pleasant Ridge, which we took over operations for both water and sanitary responsibility of maintenance and operations in fiscal year 2022. We also operate 10 large, hopefully it switched, yep, regional water systems that are either Chapter 20 or Chapter 21 under the Drain Code or under Michigan Public Act 342, and those are the systems that are owned by the county proper. We also operate and maintain, and I did something wrong with my slides here, 26 local sewer systems on behalf of the communities in Oakland County. Oh, something's going wrong. And under the Michigan Drain Code, we operate and maintain over 400 storm drain systems. This includes your lake levels, your dams, and your stormwater systems that impact every single community within Oakland County. So as these systems age, they need maintenance, rehabilitation, and eventual replacement in the form of capital projects. On our way, our management team can track the reliability and quality of service we provide through a series of key performance indicators, some of which, hopefully, are listed on the slide here and in the report that we're provided. These quantifiable measures provide a picture of our organizational performance, helping provide direction for our strategic and operational improvements. WRC manages $54.6 billion worth of assets in the ground in Oakland County today. And these are managed through the county's Collaborative Asset Management System, or CAMS. The CAMS system provides the ability to collect quantifiable data that was used in the key performance indicators on the previous slide, and to optimize predictive, preventative, and corrective operations and maintenance for all the systems under our jurisdiction. This maintenance program, along with our asset optimization program, is critical for extending the useful life of the system components and to prevent premature failure. It also promotes, oh, sorry.
I was going to ask Madam Chair if we're allowed to ask questions as you go, or should we wait till?
Sure, you can ask as we go, yeah.
I just had a question relative to the predictive and preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
Is our goal 15%? Or are we looking to increase that? Because we always like to predict what's going to happen more than waiting for corrective maintenance at 70%.
Yeah, our goal is 20% corrective maintenance. So what that means is that if you have more than 20% corrective, you're waiting for things to fail and you're very reactive. If you have a significantly less than 20% corrective, that means that you're over predictive maintenance and maybe not spending your money on the right thing at the right time. So we do have a KPI that we manage for all of our systems to that measure. And you can see, I think on this slide, yeah, you can see, so this slide is by money. When I say 20%, it's by work order count, because obviously your corrective is gonna be your high money. And they wanted to do it by money, but we go by work order count. And we are, other than a few systems that we've recently taken over that kind of delayed some corrective maintenance, we are fairly regularly in that 15 to 25% corrective.
Okay, thank you.
By work order count, not by money.
Yeah, so since this is a presentation and you're fine with questions in
Yeah.
between, I did set up a split screen because I didn't see your name. Yeah, I know, fancy. So if you do want to raise your hand and I'll be sure to call on you.
Okay, yeah, please interrupt and ask questions. We're here to tell you guys what we're doing.
Well, having the opportunity
Yeah.
then, I was going to ask on slide 3, you don't have to, or 4, you don't have to go back, but it says the outcomes we pursue and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is that image of in 4? It looks like a huge,
I think that's going to be Northeast
like
Substation.
crazy.
Oh, yeah, that is the tunnel boring. Actually, it's Gary's project. Oops, did I not come in?
He'll be talking about the
Yeah, in a little bit, we'll have other projects on it. It is
number
the
4.
I-75 tunnel boring, so anyone that lives in the corridor knows that project going on. And actually, that's one of our highlighted projects. Gary's going to talk about how we're involved in that.
Nice, okay, thank
I do
you.
have another question. It's like, I think it was 926,000 gallons or something, pollutants get into that.
Oh, yeah.
How do you calculate that, or how do you determine that number? Because I'm intrigued, because it's a lot.
Yeah, we have an IDEP program, and we do estimate every year. They find, we do inspections on a certain percentage of our outfalls. This is not my unit, so I'm hopefully we can get that answered a little more detail. But they do inspections on outfalls, and they make an estimate when they see the outfalls. They notice a contaminant. They make an estimate on what that is, and they work with whether it's a business or a local resident or whatever to stop that contaminant. And they estimate based on how many days are left in the year how much contaminant
Okay,
was
I think
removed.
that's a great number. The reason I'm asking the question, because are there ways we can maybe help educate others to help bring that number even higher? Because it's intriguing to me that we're doing that much today.
Yeah, I know we have a cycle. We obviously don't have the money or the staff to inspect all outfalls every year. So there is a cyclical cycle when we do it that is part of our permit process.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
For those who don't know, IDEP means illicit discharge
sorry.
elimination program, and it's a federal program that has us make sure that we're not having sewage getting into our drains and things like that. So, just want to let you know.
Thank you. Brendan?
Sorry, since we're like at a good breaking point with questions. On slide 9, you had a map of stormwater drains, and I'm just curious, as someone who doesn't know stormwater drain infrastructure, my folks live in Oakland County or Oakland Township, and I know that y'all are working on some stuff right by their house at the Norwood Pines area. What is the reason for, in Oakland and West Bloomfield, there's such like a high density cluster of infrastructure versus most of the county? So like what's going on there that seems inefficient, but I'm totally naive?
Those are actually, excuse me, those are actually Chapter 18 drainage districts. Those are the 2 townships in Oakland County who've chosen to make it so that every one of their subdivision drains, rather than leave it to the subdivision or the local road commissions, they create a Chapter 18 drainage district and have create an official county drain that is now our responsibility to operate and maintain the drainage within the subdivisions. And those are the only 2 communities, because they chose to do that a long time ago, that they choose to go that Chapter 18 route.
Okay, interesting.
And And then the Pleasant Ridge, you mentioned Pleasant Ridge just in the last couple of years. How, without getting into their, to the weeds, just curious, how did that occur? Like, what did they notice that made it where they wanted to partner on, I believe it was
The operation and maintenance.
water systems? So that seems like comprehensive.
We took over both Pleasant Ridge and Sylvan Lake. We've been in talks for at least 5 years with both of those communities. They had very small DPW staff that was looking at retiring or had already retired. And because, like Jim Nash mentioned, we have quantity of scale with fewer people, so less expensive, we can do what they do. Also, we have better response to emergencies because we have a huge amount of staff than they were with the limited staff. So that's where we can be very efficient. So a lot of the smaller communities that currently have their own DPW, it's actually a problem in our industry. Over 35% of the active employees in our industry will be eligible for retirement in the next 3 years. So we're seeing that across the county, we're seeing that across the country, and that's why a lot of these smaller utilities are turning to us as a solution.
And that's not just for what you guys do, that's pretty much across the board.
Yeah,
Sure.
probably.
All the trades, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
More fun. Pick it up a little bit more.
So I just want to highlight our maintenance program and our asset optimization program, as those are critical to balancing the useful life and the risk. And this promotes our long-term sustainability and the reliability, as Jim mentioned. That's one of our key indicators for the utilities we maintain at the lowest minimum cost. Oops, I'm not doing the right thing again. Okay, but I do want to highlight that minimizing costs does not mean spending no money on maintenance and capital. It's actually the opposite. It's doing the right thing to the right asset at the right time to minimize that total life cycle cost and the risk of failure to our systems. So here at WRC, we look at the 5-year and the 20-year life cycle projections and create an overall capital plan. And our fiscal year 2022 plan included over $250 million in maintenance and capital improvements throughout the utilities we maintain. So what do those capital solutions look like in fiscal year 2022? Pressures from inflation, I'm sure you guys have had that come across your desk, have been driving our costs higher and higher. And we needed to work to reduce that impact to our customer communities. And we did that by spending significant resources on applying for and receiving 3 Clean Water State Revolving Fund loans and 5 Clean Water Non-Pouring Source projects, bringing over $30 million in grants and principal forgiveness to the customers we received. In addition, we were awarded over $150 million in low-interest loans, which will save our customer communities tens of millions of dollars in interest over the next 20 years. So now I'm going to hand it off to Joel Brown, our chief engineer over our project units, to discuss one of our innovative projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to present today. I'll be going over projects that we have on the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor Drain, or what we refer to as OMID system. There's a couple pieces of infrastructure actually downstream of the OMID system that we're working on currently right now. One such piece of infrastructure is the Northeast Sewage Pump Station, which is located at 8 Mile and Van Dyke. It's at the top of your screen there in the city of Detroit. It receives flow from over 800,000 residents as part of the OMID system. It has a contract capacity over 270 million gallons a day that it can push through. It was built in the 1970s, and as such, a lot of the equipment inside the station is antiquated, end of life, and is in need of replacement. Now, immediately downstream of the Northeast Sewage Pump Station lies the North Interceptor East Arm. There's a stretch of about 7 miles of interceptor pipe ranging from 17-foot in diameter at the Northeast Sewage Pump Station down to 8-foot in diameter at Mack Avenue and Gratiot Avenue in the city of Detroit, which is, at the south end of the screen there. From there, that particular piece of pipe is OMID-only flow, and then at Mack and Gratiot Avenue, the NIA receives flow from the city of Detroit, where it's combined, and then it proceeds on down to the Detroit Water Resource Recovery Facility. Now, the NIA itself has a couple of locations of distress in which hydrogen sulfide corrosion is acting within the interceptor. And basically what that is there's bacteria in the interceptor that feeds on the hydrogen sulfide in the sewage. And basically they convert that to sulfuric acid, which then corrodes the concrete. So it's detrimental to the pipe. And it's most prevalent in cases where the sewage is agitated, where the hydrogen sulfide gets in the atmosphere within the sewer, and where the bacteria can then feed on it. And that's within the NIA, that's most occurrent immediately downstream of the Northeast Sewage Pump Station, and then also at the confluence at Mack Avenue and Gratiot Avenue. Now, the OMID does not actually own these two pieces of infrastructure. The Great Lakes Water Authority does. But in a recent 2019 agreement, we overtook the maintenance of these facilities, and we also received authorization from GLEWA to oversee the major maintenance and capital projects associated with this infrastructure. And with that, OMID undertook $100 million rehabilitation projects for this infrastructure, and we were able to do that at no additional cost to the ratepayers due to savings of over $8 million a year from the takeover of the maintenance from the Great Lakes Water Authority. So it was a huge win for the OMID system. Going into the projects themselves, if you could skip back to the NIA. It's going by itself here. So I just want to talk about the slip lining operation that we're doing immediately downstream of the Northeast Sewage Pump Station. We're slip lining approximately 1,700 feet of pipe, which slip lining is pipe within a pipe. As far as a rehab opportunity. This diameter here at 17 feet is one of the largest that's been undertaken for a slip lining operation in the world, if not the largest. So that is impressive in itself.
I want to geek out on you a little bit. What material is that slip lining made of?
So I was actually just going to speak to that, okay? So there's actually three materials that we utilize as part of this project. Channel line, which is on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, stiff pipe, which is kind of a carbon reinforcement, and then rock hard, which is a reinforced polymer concrete material. So what we actually did as far as an innovation, in the bidding process, we allowed these three pipe materials that we vetted, that we knew were viable in the system, to compete with one another for the footage that they could install in the project. So we actually had what ended up being a global competition for footage within the pipe. So it was good for our ratepayers, good for the project in terms of reducing pricing. And actually the channel line pipe is made in Dubai, India. So it really was a global competition in that regard. We actually plan on doing the same thing, or we actually did a similar type of competition for the spray lining that we're going to do at the Mack Avenue and Gratiot location. So continuing on to the Northeast Sewage Pump Station, again, like I said in the beginning, we needed to do a complete rehabilitation of this station, a complete gutting of the mechanical and electrical components, and you see that in the pictures taking place with the motors and the pumps and the valves within the station itself, and then the electrical switchgear is in the middle of your page there. But actually, one of the most interesting aspects about this project is in the procurement, in that a traditional job will do a design that's done by an engineer, and then we'll let it out to bid for contractors, and then actually construct the project. Well, in this particular case, we actually utilize an alternative delivery method called construction manager at risk. And what that allowed us to do is bring the contractor on board early in the design process, and then once the equipment was known to be able to be procured, we actually allowed the contractor to procure those long lead items to actually expedite the job. This actually proved critical for this project because early on in the construction, we lost one of the transformers on the site. So we lost our system redundancy from the electrical perspective at the site. And we asked the contractor to expedite that transformer. We were able to get it out quickly and restore system redundancy. And what we're looking at in this marketplace now is more alternative deliveries like this, because what we're seeing across the water and wastewater industry is severely long lead times for major pieces of equipment in the electrical and pump realms. So we're going to see more of this alternative delivery method in the future to kind of manage that aspect. Yes?
What's the life expectancy of the new pumps and everything? Is it something that's going to last 20 years, 30 years, 50 years?
I believe it'd be more on the order of 50 years that we're looking at. Yes?
You mentioned the sulfuric acid was kind of basically, in very layperson terms, was eating away at the pipe, and that's kind of how we've ended up in some mess we're in, right?
Correct.
Is there anything to say that that problem exists elsewhere within the system, and is that a concern? Is that something we need to address? Obviously, it's great you guys are addressing this particular section of the system.
Yes.
But are there a lot more of these that we should be aware of and prepared for down the road, or is that?
So it does exist elsewhere in the system, and it certainly depends on the characteristics of the sewage flow. And in particular, if there's retention, the longer sewage sits, the more development of sulfates and the hydrogen sulfide gets generated off of there. What we're actually doing in the OMID system is we actually looked at this problem holistically, and we engaged in a series of basically odor control devices where we're capturing the hydrogen sulfide in the air and treating it through a biotrickling filter that's actually on the site at the Northeast Sewage Pump Station. So we're actually stripping it out of the sewer so it can't manifest and turn into sulfuric acid. So we're dealing with that on the OMID system. We're also looking at upstream in the Clinton-Oakland system doing kind of a similar type of thing. We're actually engaging in a pilot study in that system right now to do something similar.
That should be done throughout the system.
We're
be more of a preventative.
Correct. We're looking at that kind of aspect. Like I said, right now it's in the Clinton-Oakland system. Again, we're targeting areas where we're seeing increased hydrogen sulfide damage.
I'll also say, as you saw, we had a lot of preventative maintenance. We have flagged all of the pipes downstream of confluences, drop connections, pump stations, any place where it would be stirred up. Those are on a much shorter inspection frequency than our other pipes at lower risk. So we do a lot of managing risk at our office, risk versus reward. And so these hydrogen sulfides, susceptible materials downstream of a place that would stir it up and create those gases, are definitely on an increased inspection frequency, and we are monitoring them.
And all of this new material has been tested for every possible thing that it could interact with and potentially have the same problem.
Yes, it was
With a different
specifically
reaction.
targeted to deal with hydrogen sulfide. Yes.
It's an issue in all sewer systems. I mean, it's just something that happens.
I'm surprised with it being, you said 1970, if I understood correctly, right? Is kind of when all this was put in the ground. So we're talking 50 years, and it took 50 years for this to occur, and nobody's realized in 50 years till now that this was a problem, or maybe not even necessarily in our area, but just anywhere. Because I assume the material is probably something that they've used throughout, even beyond Oakland County, I would think, right?
Yes, concrete was definitely a material that was heavily used in the 1970s.
Just
a lot
regular
of development.
concrete.
And this is actually unreinforced concrete within this interceptor, yeah. It's actually impressive, yes. Normally it is reinforced. Usually the pipe that's manufactured in a factory is usually reinforced nowadays, but this was all unreinforced concrete.
He hasn't told you it's 80 feet deep.
Yeah,
It is a pretty impressive sewer.
And to your point about inspection, so actually upstream within the OMID system, we didn't really have an ability to hold back flow to even get in there to see what's going on in the pipe. And actually, over the last decade, we implemented a series of control structures, which are gates that we put in the sewer flow so we could hold it back to be able to get in the pipe and look at what's going on. And so we're implementing now, talking about preventive maintenance, we're implementing a inspection policy on a rotation to make sure that we're looking at this infrastructure so it doesn't reach this kind of state where we have to do major rehabilitation.
So in the spirit of geeking out even further, is there like barometric pressure that you have to be aware of when you're 80 feet down in the ground? I'm just curious. Like, are there
Not
certain equipment that you have to have?
So actually, to take a step back, they used to do that for tunneling operations, and they actually pressurized the tunnel and worked under that. It introduces complications with getting the bends, if you will, so that practice really isn't used anymore. But anything within the interceptor is kind of exposed to the open atmosphere because we open the manholes or open shafts up, so you're not really feeling any pressure from the atmosphere in that regard.
They used to call it caisson sickness, and before they really understood what was happening, back when they would pressurize these shafts, say like, you know, when they're building things like the Brooklyn Bridge and things like that, where these workers were working under a pressurized environment, and what happens is nitrogen can get into your blood, and too much gets in your blood. When you come back out, the bubbles expand in your blood and all your joints and tissues, and it's the same thing that scuba divers are aware of now, called the bends. So, yeah.
There's presumably a lot of people that are signing up for these jobs, it sounds like, to go 80 feet down and inspect the sewage systems.
Well, we probably could ask you 1,000 things, but I'll have you go ahead with this next couple of slides, and then we'll be able to tackle on the back end.
Sure. I'm going to take the next project. This is the Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drain. It's located in southern Oakland County and serves 15 county communities. Over the next 4 years, our office will be constructing a force main and improvements to a pump station along 8 Mile Road as part of our corrective action plan to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows to the Rouge River. The Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drain currently provides sanitary sewer service to over 300,000 Oakland County residents. The story here is not the complexity of the project, although Joel's team can attest that it is a very complex and large project. The story here really is about the regional collaboration and working together with the Great Lakes Water Authority and the City of Detroit to improve the water quality of the Rouge. Together, modifications to all 3 of our systems provide the Evergreen Farmington capacity that we purchased additional contract capacity, which allows more sewage to flow from our system through the Great Lakes Water Authority system and to the treatment plant. And this is more to save the river because in addition, it also prevents combined sewer overflows from both Great Lakes Water Authority and the Detroit system as well during the small storms that we get 50+ times a year. So by doing one project, we do this by costing less than if all 3 of us tried to build something to solve the same problem on our own. But we didn't stop there. As Joel mentioned, due to coordinating timing of the work among these 3 parties, as well as our permitting agency, the Michigan Department of Great Lakes Water Authority, our office was able to utilize that construction manager at risk to procure these long lead items, such as our generators, our pumps, and our electrical system. That really is what made this timing of our 3 projects come together. So this is the first project in the state of Michigan to utilize the state revolving fund for that CMAR type of work. It's also the first project in Michigan to utilize the state revolving fund loan program for the purchase of capacity. So we really did have to work hard with our regulators over the last year to make these sort of groundbreaking things happen. So this innovation and thinking by our projects team really capitalized on a regional opportunity and optimized the value for investment and improving water quality to our customer communities back to the 5 core values that we're focusing on. So next, I'm going to hand it over to Gary Nigro, who's going to talk about a few innovations and collaborative opportunities his team has been working on.
Okay. Here's the photograph, one of the photographs that you were asking about earlier. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the George W. Kuhn Drainage District. So in southeast Oakland County, a lot of the communities in that area are all combined system, meaning that the same pipe carries sanitary sewage as well as storm drainage. So and we've been called to try to separate. You know, the whole industry is saying, like, do your best to separate the entire system the best of your ability. But
I'm sorry, I do want to interrupt you really quickly, Gary.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little feedback from a microphone online, so if it's someone who, I don't want to call any names, but if you could just check your mute, and we'll keep going. Go ahead, Di.
Thank you.
Okay. There's been studies over the last decade or so that estimate the cost to separate the entire drainage system so that it's no longer a combined system, but separate into storm and sanitary, up to, for southeast Michigan, up to $10 billion. That kind of range of money. So I'm going to flash forward now to, well, let me back up here. So currently, I-75 between 12-mile and 8-mile roads is a depressed freeway. I mean, it's built below all the streets and the businesses for highway noise regulations. But because of it being below all of the, all of the surface streets and everything, you have to do something about the stormwater. Every time it rains, the highway collects water like a big bathtub, right? Big trapezoid cut out of the earth. So over the last 50 or so years, they have all these, MDOT had these storm pump stations, and there's about 5 of them between that stretch at 12 and 8 Mile. In order to do the I-75 modernization project, which they're in phase 3 right now, doing 13 Mile to 8 Mile, they wanted to add additional lanes. Well, it was gonna end up cutting into those pump stations, so they knew they had to remove all the pump stations. The question was, do they rebuild them and put them a little farther outside of the road right away? The option they chose to do was to put in a deep stormwater conveyance and storage tunnel instead of the pump station. So the location of each one of these pump stations that exist today that are being removed, the water will drop through a capture shaft at those pump stations and go into this enormous tunnel that you see. So it's going to be 4 miles long, and it's about 14 feet in diameter, and it'll store about 25 million gallons of stormwater. Their office approached us, MDOT did, about 5 years ago and said, hey, we want to build this big tunnel under I-75, and we're going to have a single dewatering pump station to dewater that tunnel back into the George W. Kuhn Retention Treatment Basin, which is a combined retention treatment basin. So at that point, we said, well, how can you separate it? Why put it back into the combined system? So, and they sort of went like, we got a big project to do here, we got to get this done, and so we just want to put it back in the combined system. So we kind of brainstormed a little bit and said, for a small cost, we can probably add an additional, an alternate outlet to the pump station. So I did some negotiating with MDOT, and not only did they finally agree, but they actually agreed to pay for those additional costs. So that tunnel and pump station, by the way, is about a $250 million project, just the tunnel portion. The entire length of all the bridge work and the highway work is about $1.4 billion. So I wanted to point that out to say, just separating out I-75 by that stormwater pump station and tunnel, quarter of $1 billion to do that. To add this extra little piece to separate it and put it in one of our separated storm pipe was about $500,000 more. Wow. So I kind of looked at that and went like, this is low-hanging fruit. We have to do this, So, plus I had their outlet, so they kind of had to do what I said. But anyway, it's going to be a very interesting project, and it's, by the way, if people aren't aware, that tunnel boring machine is probably about 80-90% complete right now. It's somewhere south of 696, probably around 9 Mile right now. It's scheduled to be completed this fall in 2023, and the entire project took about 3.5-4 years to complete. So the pump station is under construction right now. That is on Oakland County property, on the WRC or the George W. Kuhn Basin's property. And MDOT is contracting with our office to actually operate that pump station on their behalf. So pretty cool project. It's about 110 feet below the ground, too. So, and then
actually, we have a cue, Dr. Rahman, if you want to just.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
What I mean is we have a queue of speakers, and I'm just going to try to let them finish the slides. Okay. And there's a question slide.
Okay, great. Yeah, I like questions. As you can tell, I'm excited about this one. So. But the other project there on the far right slide is just a photograph of the DeQuinder pump station. So this is the dewatering pump station that was built originally in 1972 as part of our GWK basin. And it was about 50 years old and seeing its age. And so about a year ago, we completed a complete rehabilitation project, added a couple innovative new ideas as far as things that are going to increase the access to the pumps for maintenance. Hopefully will be more sustainable in the future. But it was definitely a need, and we were able to do that entire project out of system reserve funds. So it was about $7 million to completely rehab that station. So it's got 690 horsepower pumps for reference. It's pretty big. So.
Wow.
But well, you're earning your keep, aren't you?
I'm trying.
All right, so we're at the question slide. I see Commissioner Johnson's been waiting ever so patiently. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you. This was really cool, and I feel bad backtracking. My question's about hydrogen sulfide. On the subject of geeking out, how is it a lot of hydrogen sulfide, and have we worked with researchers to convert it to energy? Because that is an emerging field of research. Or are we just burning it away? Like, is this a potential revenue stream is what I'm wondering.
So hydrogen sulfide, to my knowledge, isn't combustible. I think you might be referring maybe to methane, which is another product.
So I Googled it, and Rice University last year published a pretty interesting piece where, quote, it can turn into a cash cow with a new catalyst that uses nano gold particles.
Oh, okay. So there's an additive to make it be able to
Yes.
burn. So I guess we have not looked into that particular aspect to answer your question directly on that. We're certainly receptive. As you can see with our presentation, we're open to ideas and being innovative and capturing that. There's actually a project that in Gary's group that we're trying to use microorganisms to basically deliver alternative energy like in that fashion. But we haven't explored that for OMID per se just yet.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
Commissioner Rahman?
Well, thank you all for the incredible presentation. I found it really informational and pretty interesting. You had mentioned that they're removing the pump stations currently along 75. Is there any repurposing of those pumps themselves, or is that part of the new pump station that they're building, or what happens, I guess, once those pumps are removed?
Well, the old pumps, there was 5 pump stations, and each one, I don't know how many pumps are in each one, but the size of them and the age of them would make them not capable of doing what the new pump station can do, which is 110 feet deep. All the new ones, or the existing ones, are maybe only 30 feet, a 30-foot lift, and the pumps are much smaller. So they're going to have 400 horsepower pumps that have to lift 110 feet of head of water to get up to the top. So the old pump stations are at the end of their life.
Okay, they couldn't be repurposed elsewhere in the system, and they're truly just done.
I don't know that we know specifically what MDOT was doing, but MDOT did publish an asset management plan in 2020 that stated 95% of their pump stations along I-75, not just the ones in Oakland County, were in poor condition. So they might have saved some of the motor windings or whatever to change out that are in better condition than some of their existing pump stations. But these were pump stations that needed work regardless of the move. So it's not going to provide a lot of value, except for, of their vintage, they might have other pump stations on 696 or otherwhere where they could possibly swap them out. But that would really be a MDOT question. It is something I know in our industry we do manage and have managed. So I would assume they would do the same.
We do that ourselves, by the way. We have 170 pump stations that the WRC manages, so a lot of times if we pull a pump out and after we have a new one in and we inspect that and realize that it's perfectly able to be rehabbed, we'll rehab it, put it on a shelf, and we have a backup.
Very good. Perfect. Thank you.
I knew Commissioner Miller would have some wonderful infrastructure questions for us. Take it away.
There's other questions that already, I know, I would say, because our members actually do this work. I would say now that it's in Oakland County, if any of the commissioners are interested, if we maybe get a tour.
Yes.
Love to.
Yeah.
Not many people want to go down in the hole. It's a long hike down, but
I'm here for it.
just.
It's a very impressive facility. It's,
Yeah.
I think, one of the biggest in the country. It's really huge, so you'd be impressed by it. We'd love to do it. We've talked about it before, having you guys come to a.
Well, we know
Just to
who we'll
visit.
task with putting it together is Commissioner Robin.
Yeah.
He does a good job of corralling squirrels as we can be.
It does.
And we'd love to do that.
Yeah, we can certainly do that for the George W. Kuhn Basin. It's pretty normal thing for us to give to. Well, not the tunnel.
Yeah, I'll skip that part of it.
Yeah.
The tunnel is still an active construction site. That's MDOT's
Go back to that
project. So
picture, you really don't think size, but just look at the little ladder.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Sort of the little ladder next to it, that's how big that is.
So is that bigger, or it might connect to the, was it from 696, one under Middle Belt tunnel?
No.
That's not bigger?
Oh, this one? Oh, yeah, no, this one's quite a bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one, the actual boring machine is 17 feet, right? And
Yeah,
so the final pipe will be 14, but the
Yeah.
actual hole is 17. So
Right.
ours was 14, and the hole was 11.
Yeah, I think that's
I mean,
correct.
and the
yeah.
actual pipe was 11. So
This right here, by the way, the clean picture on the left is just the cutting head of, of the actual TBM, tunnel boring machine, sorry. When it's fully assembled underground, it's about 400 feet long. So, and then just for frame of reference, I think that tunnel shaft that you're looking at there in the middle picture is about 54 feet in diameter, approximately. So it's 110 feet down.
Yeah.
And the county weighmaster said that when they pulled this thing out of the ground to move it, to put it back in and go from 696 south, that it was by far the largest thing that's ever been moved on an Oakland County road. It's over 700,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Big cranes. The other question, so you mentioned it'll keep from putting waste into the Rouge. Is this part of the Rouge River pump station system where like the dirty water runs through, they shoot it with chlorine or whatever chemical, and it shoots back into the Rouge to kind of clean it up?
It is not, oh, go ahead.
This one's actually part of the Clinton River. It's part of the, that's the.
But it keeps it from pouring over to the Rouge?
My project went to the
I'm sorry, I
Rouge.
skipped on you.
Sorry.
The other hamster in my head jumped in Mogo.
So the Evergreen Farmington sanitary drain is sort of in the upper reaches of the Rouge in southern Oakland County. And this is sanitary sewer overflow. So in order to prevent sewage from getting into basements, getting into contact with the public, that's sort of our #1 priority, is we do have certain points that we overflow to the Rouge River to protect that public health. So those locations, obviously they're illegal. You can't overflow more than once in 10 years per the EPA and the Michigan state standards. So that's what we're working to eliminate. In addition, the city of Detroit and Great Lakes Water Authority have a different permit, but that limits their combined sewer overflows to different limits depending on the location. And so our goal as a region, the further up in the Rouge branch you can eliminate those overflows, the better quality further down the branch you get. So we're working with Detroit to eliminate some of their high-reaching combined sewer overflows, and we're removing our 2 remaining SSO locations on the Rouge River.
Okay. So this doesn't go to any of those locations that clean the water for the Rouge?
No, this,
Okay.
unfortunately, this is a sanitary, a sanitary, per Michigan law, sanitary systems cannot go into those systems that Gary is talking about. They only provide primary treatment. Separated sanitary systems are required to get secondary treatment per Michigan law.
Thank you.
Excellent. I do have a question for you. It was brought up by one of the analysts to inquire for good measure with regards to the hexavalent chromium spill in the Huron River some time ago in Wixom, South Lyon. And the gist of it was, in terms of the supports for the health department here in Oakland County, just were you involved at all, and if in any way, to support that matter?
You're asking me directly?
Well, I'm asking Commissioner Nash as a top of the org chart type of thing, if you had any thoughts on that. But he can assign that to you if he'd like.
So the company that was identified, Tribar International, I think is their name. They're basically, when they have a release, it goes, whatever happened within that company itself had a release, and it went into the sanitary system, which in that area where they're located in, I think that's Wixom. It actually flows through Wixom's wastewater treatment plant. So Wixom operates their own plant, or they have contracts to do it, I think. So, so as far as what they were able to do to help capture it, it was a little difficult. But wastewater treatment plants aren't designed to filter out environmental hazards like that. So, but I guess I don't have a lot to say about it. So.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something that's regulated by Eagle through EPA rules, and it's not really involved with us. Again, it was Wixom plant. We don't really have anything to do with them directly. So we don't have much of a role in those kind of things unless it affects something of ours. And there's an industrial pretreatment program that means that any industrial flow that comes into our facilities, we have to test what's in it. And so then charge them for what we have to do to fix it. So we try to keep it through that, but if it's not directly involved with our facilities, then we have no role in it. It's not our place.
No visibility, absolutely. All right, well, that was one question I had. Is this your same hand up from before?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, no problem. Anything further before we receive and file?
I just have one thing, if you can hear me real quick.
Yes.
Is this Sid?
Oh, Sid, yes.
Sid Lockhart? Yeah, we just want to give you a peek behind the curtain of 23, and Gary can expand this, and Commissioner Nash is, we're working at the wastewater recovery facility, and we're looking to do a cogeneration project where we will be burning the biogas to create energy, if we can get enough funding for that part of the project. And with that, we do have to strip the H2S in order for the engines to clean the gas and to burn it, essentially. But hopefully we'll be talking about that in 23 coming up.
Exciting, and I can see Commissioners Johnson and Miller nodding with glee. So we'll keep us posted on that for sure.
Well, I can tell you, I'm really proud, first of all, the job these folks do and all the people that work for me. We have amazing people at this county. And so I want to kind of stress that some of the things we've talked about, the Evergreen Farmington project, different things like that. We helped pass a regional stormwater ordinance recently. All these things, we had to convince our regulatory authorities, Eagle, that this was the right thing to do. And it took some effort for us to do that because they traditionally do everything in a silo. Everything is independently regulated. We show them that if we do this on a regional basis, we can all save money, we all save cleaner water, and in the long run, this is going to be the much more sustainable way of doing it. So we got together with our surrounding counties on our stormwater ordinances on a project like this, and I think that's really very, very important to continue doing this because we're much stronger when we act as a region than we act individually, and now we're beginning to get these regulators to really understand that. So I think we're going to do much more in the future on a regional basis. So I'm real proud of that.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to receive and file this presentation. Mr. Rahman I saw, and Commissioner Johnson for support. And any discussion? We can prompt the vote. I remain impressed with the technology from the 70s and the 60s and 50s, things like that just still keep us going as a society. It's just fascinating.
You have 7 years, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Carried. Thank you all for
Thank you, folks. Appreciate
your
it.
time. All right, EDI, moving along. Takes us to item number 11 on the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to go in.
Ooh. You don't want people leaving during this?
I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of considering the purchase or lease of property. Moved by Miller, seconded by Johnson. A roll call or prompt the vote, please, so that we can enter.
Yeah, don't close the door until it's.
Yeah.
Oh.
Getting over here.
And then, yeah, Commissioner Robert, if you needed to leave, you can leave.
Am I allowed to leave? I can't come back.
You couldn't come back in.
Leave it open.
I've got
You knew you could leave a closed session. I'm gonna give you a spank. Yeah, I know. With a closed session, I think we're gonna have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Hold on, we've got to get back into the
We gotta vote.
meeting.
My tech team give me the okay.
You guys have the coolest socks, man, Commissioner.
I have no socks.
Do they have no
Do they have no socks? I have no socks.
You have no socks?
I have no socks.
No, I have socks on. I debated that today. It is warm enough.
Yeah, for the no socks.
I grabbed my wool coat out of half, I'm like, oh,
I broke out my
Chris,
short sleeve.
was this about this, your phone or your? No, something else. I'll talk to you later.
I think we are good to go. Yeah.
All right, so I declare this meeting back in open session.
I'll tell you when there's another one, just to tell you, you know.
Who's
I think it may.
Okay, I will,
No.
Oh, was it? Is it? No.
I don't know.
okay. I, just if I could get your attention, folks, I'll entertain a motion that the department or facilities management be authorized to proceed in accordance with the directives discussed in closed session. That's the motion I'll entertain if anyone would like to
I would second
move
that. Or move that.
Move it, I'll second.
Support it.
Whatever.
And I will have you prompt the vote.
It's tied down by now. It's flat level.
I felt Hoffman lurking.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
That motion carries, folks,
Every year I get one. Just bring them.
unanimously. And
All right, now we go back and how we get to the next meeting.
so that takes us to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this committee? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Is there any other business to come before this committee? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Whoa.
Almost broke that.